Welcome to Ask Me Anything About Politics. My name is Jarrett, and I'm here to answer all of your questions about politics, be they simple or complicated, be they left wing or right wing. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn. Feel like trying to learn a new language. So, this is the show where you can ask all your questions about politics and nobody's going to judge you or roast you or make fun of you in any kind of way. I don't believe in making fun of people for trying to learn new things. I don't believe in debates. I don't think that they are productive. So, you're not going to see any of that here today on my show. So long as you're asking a question in good faith, you will be given a good faith answer in response. I'm not here to this is not one of those shows where people yell at each other and call each other names and do debates and try to prove that one side is a cuck or whatever. That is not what we do here on this show. Kat asks, is it true that major corporations are leaving NYC? I have not heard anything about major corporations leaving NYC. Black Jaguar says, do you like my country, Brazil, and where I live, the Amazon? I don't know anything about the Amazon, like what it's like to live there. I've only heard good things about Brazil. Seems like a pretty dope place. I haven't visited, unfortunately. So sorry, Black Jaguar. All right, welcome. Excellent first questions, everybody. My name is Jared, and I'm here to answer all your questions about politics, be they simple or complicated, be they left wing or right wing. So throw your questions in the chat. We will get to answering them. Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, or something on the outskirts. I don't judge, I don't roast, I don't debate. I'm not going to yell at you because we have different political beliefs or different political opinions, but maybe we can get into it. Maybe we can talk about why you believe the things that you believe, and I can tell you about why I believe the things that I believe, and then maybe we can get back to a shared reality so that we can actually agree on what's going on in the country and in the government, and that way we can maybe have more substantive conversations about how to fix problems once we actually agree on what the fucking problems are. So go ahead and throw your questions in the chat and we will get to answering them. Everybody is welcome here. Black Jaguar says, what's your favorite U.S. state? Oh, I don't know if I have a favorite U.S. state, but, and I also don't, I think that if I had to pick my least favorite states, I'd probably go Florida and Texas. But, even that, there's still a lot of good there to enjoy about those states. Okay, welcome everybody to Ask Me Anything About American Politics. My name is Jarrett, and I am here to answer all your questions about politics. Happy Friday to you too, John Abbott. So go ahead and throw your questions in the chat, and we will get to talking about it. Mikhail Meme says, which moms are hotter, left-wing moms or right-wing moms? Oh, I don't discriminate against moms based on how they vote. Fletch Lives Again says, T and his admin are the problem. Completely agree with that. I mean, I think that the Republican politicians and Republican talking heads in general are the problem, Fletch. But I take your points and generally agree. Welcome, everybody. Throw your questions in the chat and we will get to answering them. There's a lot of misinformation and propaganda running around rampant out there. And so this is the show where you can ask your questions and we can try to figure out what's actually going on and we can try to parse through some of the nonsense and actually have a shared reality again. Kat says, do you think it's a good thing Abdul Sayed won the Democratic primary against Haley Stevens? I do. It doesn't really matter what my opinion is, though, because I don't live in Michigan. I like progressive candidates. I will generally always support a progressive candidate over a centrist candidate. But I will support any Democratic candidate over any Republican candidate because the platform of the Republican Party is toxic and the platform of the Democratic Party is pretty darn good. Yeah, is it possible that because Abdul Sayed is a Muslim, because he has a less white-sounding name, because he is more of a progressive, it will be easier for Republicans to demagogue him and scare people into voting for the Republican instead of for the Democrat? I suppose it's possible. But I do think that we as a culture need to get past the argument of, is this a better Democrat or a worse Democrat, whereas opposed we're like, what you're voting for is the platform of the political party that the name is attached to. So if you agree with what the current government of the United States is doing with the cost of living crisis and a useless forever war in Iran that is costing human lives and billions of dollars, with a rogue federal agency wearing masks and snatching people up off the street who've done absolutely nothing wrong, and then holding them illegally in torture prisons. and the president having a cryptocurrency and his sons doing business deals all around the planet in exchange for political favors, massive amounts of corruption and self-dealing, then yeah, I suppose you can go ahead and vote for the Republican. I just don't, that's not the kind of country that I want to live in, you know? User says I get all of my info off Fox News and that we should deport all Al Sayed. Are you being facetious, user, or is this really how you feel? Because if it's really how you feel, then I'm gonna have to put you in question jail because those were not productive comments that you just made. Hot Dog Finger says, why are both parties corrupt and absolute trash? They're not. The Republican Party is a lot more trash and a lot more corrupt, and so you should vote for the Democratic Party because it's way better. Kat says, Haley is a big Israeli supporter. Anyways, I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes politicians can get like, intimidated or bullied into supporting the Netanyahu administration because of AIPAC and because of AIPAC money. So I can't say for certain whether Haley Stevens would or would not have been a vote for continuing to send money and weapons to Netanyahu. But, I do think that Abdullah Sayed was a better candidate, particularly because he was so aggressively anti-AIPAC and anti-Netanyahu. On says, are you a good goy? I don't know if I'm technically a goy, but I do like to think that I am a good person. Salty Much says, no, say what you actually mean. You don't care. What do you mean, Salty Much? Hot Dog Finger says, the majority of the politicians participate in insider trading, Pelosi being one of the worst. No, I don't believe that that is accurate, Hot Dog Fingers. It also seems like you are specifically describing the situation in a way to make it seem as though both parties are equal in this, whereas Republicans are in full control of the government right now, so they could pass a bill, a bipartisan bill that many Democrats have signed on to make it illegal for politicians to do insider trading, and yet the Republican Party is not passing it. So if you want to get rid of insider trading, you should vote for the Democratic Party. Hot Dog Fingers. Hot Dog Fingers, you are in question jail because you are literally saying the opposite of things that are accurate. So you either ask a question or you leave. Jeremy Wolf, great to see you again. Says I vote, but I find it hard to, especially in the presidential elections. How come, Jeremy Wolf? Surely there are candidates that you think are better than the other candidate. Even if you don't like the one that is better, you can still agree that better is better and worse is worse, right? All right, GGGGGG says, I requested. Cool. You may get lucky, but I do not guarantee that anybody will be brought up onto my live stream. Sometimes people are, sometimes people are not. All right, what is up, Ecuadorian? Good to see you again. John Abbott says, silly Jarrett, now that you've got a kid, the correct answer to the question is, my wife is the hottest mom. You know what? You're right, and I'm sure I'm in the doghouse now because of that. All right, BitNevo says, Jarrett, what comes from the evil language in the birthright executive order? I'm not 100% sure there. If you listen to legal experts, they will tell you that there were certain details in the Supreme Court's birthright citizenship decisions that were kind of leaving the door open for a different kind of case that could restrict birthright citizenship. I believe it was Kavanaugh that was the one that did a concurrence that specifically laid out a better legal justification for doing what Trump wanted to do. So my guess is that Stephen Miller picked up on that clue. Shadow President Stephen Miller picked up on that clue and then basically just put forward this new executive order so that it could get back to the Supreme Court, so that the holdouts could then switch their vote and get rid of whatever brown people they don't like. But that's a little outside of my area of expertise. So I would say, listen to Strict Scrutiny on the Crooked Network. If they'll probably talk about it on Monday, is my guess. All right, Chris says, in what ways can we overthrow Citizens United? So there's actually, Chris, a very interesting novel legal mechanism that the states are trying, where the states are basically saying that you cannot operate in our state if you are going to be making the kind of political donations that used to be illegal before Citizens United. So that's still working its way through the courts, and I'm not going to hold my breath that this Supreme Court is going to uphold any of the lower court decisions based on if they go against Citizens United, which again was basically the Supreme Court's decision, give or take a couple of justices.
Yeah, failing that, we would just need to elect Democrats who will add seats to the Supreme Court so that we can get a new case up there and get Citizens United overturned. Joe Conservative says, "How do you prosecute Mr. Schiff for Russiagate? Why would you? Why would you prosecute Adam Schiff? He's done nothing wrong." Chris says, "Is that the only way? How can we get rid of it federally?" Again, the only way to get rid of it federally is to elect Democrats and then have them expand the Supreme Court. I mean, I suppose you could potentially pass some legislation to undo Citizens United. There's always the concern that a corrupt billionaire-owned Supreme Court could say that legislation is unconstitutional. But I suppose it's worth a try. All right, Josh says you looking submissive today. You used the wrong your, Josh. Chris says, so we would just need a case review. There's no alternative way. I mean, I gave you the alternative ways, Chris. I gave you could either go through the states, which is, working its way through the courts right now. You could add seats to the Supreme Court, or you could try to pass legislation and then hope that the Supreme Court does not find that legislation to be unconstitutional. Bruh says, technically Russia didn't interfere in the election and it was released by Trump's administration himself. That is accurate, bruh. Okay, Javier Palacio says, hello, Jared. What are your thoughts on Fauci and this seemingly nonstop witch hunt? Thanks. It is clear that the Republican Party wants to distract America from the shit show that is the Trump administration, the Republican Congress, and the conservative Supreme Court. Like, they are the ones who are dismantling our government. They are the ones who are allowing this $1 billion a day stupid forever war to continue going on and increasing costs for American citizens, in addition to being a disgusting waste of human life. They are continuing to allow the federal government to send masked agents to every state in the country and just round up every brown person they see and detain them illegally or whatever. They are continuing to allow the Trump administration to do unprecedented amounts of corruption and self-dealing. And so they have decided to trot out a career civil servant, Anthony Fauci, in front of America and try to point fingers at him for mistakes that Trump made during the COVID pandemic. Like, give me a fucking break. Like, I'm not falling for this bullshit for 1 second. What is up, Lauren? Good to see you again. All right, user keeps on saying the same thing, so that's a block. All right, scrolling up. Chris says, I mean, the States is a very rough approach. Most wouldn't. I gotcha, though. Thanks. I mean, we'll see. It could potentially work. I'm interested in seeing how it plays out. Dreamy Raimi says, what do you think of students having to study the Bible in the classroom in Texas? I mean, if it's a public school, that is blatantly unconstitutional. There's freedom of religion and there's separation of church and state. So, if you are a publicly funded school, it is unconstitutional for you to teach any religion in a way that makes it seem like you have a preferred religion. And teaching the Bible but not the Quran or the Talmud is basically saying that Christianity is the preferred religion of America. Tim's Health Journey says, what will stop Trump from seizing ballots at the midterms? State governments, basically. I believe that state governments and governors are working on contingency plans right now. If you're worried about that with your state, then get on the phone with your local representatives and make sure that they have that plan. Okay, M Trin Network says, preach. Thank you, M Trin Network. I appreciate you being here. Mikhail says, Barrett Jarenstein, do you like Monster? Like the energy drink? Nah, I don't drink caffeine usually. Average Joe, good to see you again, says, Third Way is definitely a Republican collaborator after pledging $50 million to delegitimize DSA between now and the 2028 election. Yeah, Third Way fucking sucks. I am not going to cast any aspersions on centrist Democratic voters. And you know what? I'm willing to give good faith arguments for why centrist Democratic politicians maybe do the stupid things that they do that force me to encourage people to not vote for them. But still, I'm like, okay, at least I get why you might be doing that. But Third Way, like, think of all the other things you could be doing with that $50 million to ensure Democratic control of the House, of the Senate, to reform the Supreme Court, to take over the White House after the Trump administration. Like, fucking miss me with this nonsense. Your fucking quote-unquote fresh and new ideas about dragging far-left candidates through the mud so that they can lose elections to Republican candidates. Like, suck my balls, guys. Panda says, are we leftists here? I am, but even if you are not, you are still welcome here. Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Democrat, Republican, something in the middle, or something on the outskirts. Waffle Science says, did you hear about the Republican primary in Michigan? I did. I don't really remember the specifics, but that's the one where the dude who dropped out won because the other guy had a Arab sounding name or something, right? Hoopy says Trump fucked everything up in the White House, painting everything gold, so insecure. I mean, yeah, but that is one of a billion things that he has done wrong in office. Okay, Mikhail Meme says, why do you not like energy, Monster Energy? It's delicious. Mikhail, you gotta start asking political questions, my guy. But yeah, I just don't drink caffeine because it gives me acid reflux. Ecuadorian says, do you think we'll ever find a Democrat like Optimus Prime who has his forward way of doing things? All right, officially ignoring some of you guys on the Twitch chat. Bruh says, Republican want to distract because they have nothing to run in 26. That is accurate. Kao Shao says, what do you think about Israel? I support the people. I do not support the government. Paul says, is Sarah Palin one of the worst people to be involved in a presidential race? No. I mean, you got Trump, you got Vance, you got fucking, I can't believe I forgot the name of Trump's first vice presidents. Like, good lords. Yeah, I guess that's what happens when, Mike Pence. There it was, Mike Pence. I got it before you guys gave it to me. Juan Wick says, which organizations profit from illegal immigration? My guess is that if you want to do like the bank shot, I would say any extremely wealthy person who uses illegal immigrants as a scapegoat to convince people to vote for Republicans. Failing that, any corporation that hires that hires undocumented immigrants, because they're able to exploit them because they can just like threaten them with calling immigration services on them or something like that. Yeah, that's just off the top of my head. Macho Hour says, do you take some interest in French politics? If so, what do you think of Marine Le Pen and Mélenchon? I don't know who Mélenchon is, but Marine Le Pen is a right-wing psychopath, so do not vote for her. Mark Ass Twain says, as a guy who works every day in construction, who should I vote for? I don't follow politics. I mean, I think that whatever job you have, Mark Ass Twain, whether you work in construction or finance or hospitality or medicine or whatever, the better political party to vote for is Democrats. Democrats have a better platform on every issue. I'm happy to go into more detail on that, Mark S. Twain, but yeah, the Republican Party does jack shit for everybody, and in fact, I would argue that they make everybody's lives worse. Sir Campsalot says, I think we need a revolution. Both parties will exploit us into oblivion. That is inaccurate, Sir Campsalot. If you truly believe in that both parties are equally bad, Sir Campsalot, I am happy to go into detail as to why that is inaccurate. But it is clear if you pay attention that the Democratic Party is way better than the Republican Party. And so please do not spread that kind of nonsense on my live stream. I'm happy to explain why it is inaccurate if you like. Mark S. Twain says, how much do I have to get into politics to vote? You don't have to get into politics at all, my guy. You just have to Google where your polling location is and check your voter registration and then just go vote. Mark says, do you support a two-state solution? I do, but if you talk to people who are experts in this, they will tell you that it's kind of not a viable path forward because the Netanyahu government has annexed so much territory that there's no way to make one contiguous state between the West Bank and Gaza. But yeah, if there was a way to make it work, then I would be for that 100%. All right, Mark S. Twain says, okay, man, thanks, Democrats. It doesn't trust you. I'll look into it. You got it, Mark S. Twain. But yeah, you can double check everything I'm saying. And if there's ever a question that comes forward again, Mark S. Twain, where you're like, Jared told me to vote for Democrats, but I saw this other guy on the internet who said that Democrats eat children. Like, Jared, can you tell me more about this? Can you help explain blah, blah, blah? Like, I'm happy to get into stuff. I am willing to back up everything that I say on this live stream. So go ahead and do your research and then come back if you like. Okay, so Rust Belt Lennon says, yeah, explain. Rust Belt Lennon, are you still here? Did you want me to explain why both parties are not equally bad? Let me know. Sir Campslot says, And politicians bought off by billionaires like most Democrats and Republicans will not fight for you. Sir Campsalot, this is your final warning. You can either ask a question or you can leave, but I do not allow people to spread the both sides are equally terrible narrative in my live stream because it is inaccurate. It is a propaganda tool that the Republican Party uses to convince people to either not vote or to vote for Republicans. Bruh says, so basically from how I see the parties, Republicans use fear, Democrats use hope, generally, but that's not 100% accurate. Sir Campslet says, no, I don't think both parties are equally as bad. Republicans are far worse, but the money involved, you missed my comment before, bro. It's usually bad per se, but the money involved and the politicians about us billionaires like most Democrats and Republicans will not fight for you. So, okay, I appreciate you saying that, Sir Camps, a lot. But again, you're saying most Democrats and Republicans, again, making it appear as though there is an equal number of people taking billionaire money on both sides of the aisle. But that is inaccurate. Again, I can get way more into this if you like. This is kind of my area of expertise. So please watch how you phrase things, my guy. If you truly believe the Republican Party is a lot worse than the Democratic Party, then you got to switch up your rhetoric, because what you are sounding like right now is a bot who has been paid to put out a narrative to suggest that both parties are equally bad to depress people from voting for Democrats. Alrighty, Muzz King and Sarah, thank you so much for helping me reach my first gift goal of the day. Mutter says, you're taking money from AIPAC too, bro. I am not taking money from AIPAC. My bank account is proof of that. Also, if AIPAC heard the things that I said about Netanyahu, they would 100% not send me any money. Okay. Moore says, El Sayed will win Michigan. You're from your lips to God's ears, Moore. Last two brain cells says, who do you support? Democrats up and down the ballots. One Eric's says, hey, are you right or left? I am left. Average Joe says, you missed my first comment. LOL, it's a concession of sorts. LOL, I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong. Oh, I didn't see your first comment. I will look for it, Average Joe. Okay, let's see here. Shiv Wadia says, I'm confused with people saying how our military is integrated with Israel with Congress decision. Shiv, are you still here? I can 100% answer that question for you if you like. Apple Watch Boy says, do you have anything to say about Fauci lying to the American people about COVID? There is zero evidence that Fauci lied to the people about COVID, Apple Watch baby. I think it's really strange that you are hyping up this Fauci issue when there are so many bigger, more current problems happening. It almost seems as though you are purposefully trying to distract people from the cost of living crisis, the Iran war, ICE atrocities, the Trump corruption, etc., etc. All right, Shiv. So the bill, which I believe is a bad bill, like it's not good. We should not be supporting it. But it is not exactly integrating America's military with Israel's military. What it basically is Israel wants to be able to buy new military tech and weapons and bullets from American manufacturers. And if we don't pass this bill, they will have to kind of like go through the American government in order to get that. This bill is a way around that. This bill is basically the government saying you are allowed to buy this shit without our permission. So long, get your own money, go to the store, buy it yourself, but you don't have to ask our permission to do this stuff anymore. And I don't care for it. I don't care for it whatsoever. Henry Libet says, what do you genuinely think about Israel? Never been. I'm sure the people there are great, but the Netanyahu government is guilty of atrocities, and he is a war criminal. They are guilty of doing a G-side, but I do not blame citizens or voters for that. I only blame the people who actually do it. Sir Campslut says, no, I think the only group people should vote for is DSA. I think it's a little hyperbolic, Sir Campslut. Like, I think that people should vote for Democrats even if it is a moderate Democrat that wins. I think that partially because we live in a nation of 330 million people, and just because somebody doesn't agree with me 100% does not mean that their vote is invalid. So if I live in a place where there's a progressive running in the primary and a centrist running in the primary and the centrist wins, I guess I didn't work hard enough to convince enough people to vote for the progressive. But me not being a child, I am not going to take my ball and go home, and I'm going to vote for better over worse, ergo the Democrats. Additionally, if you vote for the centrist Democrats and they win, you have essentially aided the progressive that won in another state or in another district. Sarah, Waffle Science, thank you so much for helping me reach my second gift goal of the day. I think there was another gifter in there as well, but the name disappeared before I was able to thank you. I have a challenge right now to get like 10 different kinds of gifts sent. So if you are a regular gifter and you feel like sending something like varieties of gifts, I would really appreciate that. That would help me win my final goal from TikTok Central. Oh, okay, Sir Campus, I think a lot of Democrats like myself just feel burned and need more than virtue signaling. I agree with that, Sir Camps. Like, I completely understand you guys feeling like that. And when I say you guys, like, I'm one of them as well. Sir Camps says, like, not enough is being done and so many are suffering in the United States. Completely agree with that as well, Sir Camps. But I have not seen any evidence that the reason why things are not getting done is because of centrist Democrats. I have seen a lot of evidence that Republican obstruction and the American people voting for Republican politicians is the reason for that happening. But if you look at even what the Biden administration did, like there was a lot of great legislation there that managed to get through past Joe Manchin, past Kristen Sinema, even past the filibuster in a couple of senses, that was really working to help Americans in their day-to-day lives, and I'm happy to go into more detail on that if you like, Sir Camps-a-Lot. Okay, Clean Fresh Edits. Oh, Mikhail, I'll get there in a second. Clean Fresh Edits says, how many Haley Stevens will either stay home or vote Rogers, especially because of Israel? It appears as though everybody who is involved in sort of like Michigan politics and Democratic politics is already sort of like ringing the bell of unifying around the candidate, Abdul El-Sayed. So it's possible that the billionaire-funded propaganda will be successful in convincing people to do that. But that will not be the fault of Abdul El-Sayed or Haley Stevens or any of the establishment Democrats, because they are all out there saying exactly the right thing about, we may have had our differences in the primary, but Abdul is now the candidate, and so everybody gets behind Abdul. All right, again, the names disappeared before I could thank you guys for helping me reach my final rose goal of the day. And again, if you're a regular gifter and you really want to help me out, send like different kinds of gifts, because I have like a goal. I got to get like 10 different kinds of gifts today or something like that. All right, Bruh says, do you support AIPAC? No, I do not. Machar says, how do you explain the rise of socialist candidate like Madani and Abdul El-Sayed? It's interesting. First of all, I take a little issue with describing them as socialists. People describe them as socialists as kind of like a cudgel. Like we're gonna, oh my God, these guys are so far to the left. They're crazy. They're psychotic. They're a bunch of communists. They're a bunch of socialists, and they're gonna take over the government, and they're gonna force you to sell your companies because only the state is allowed to have, blah blah blah, stuff like that. But where does this come from? This has come from a bunch of candidates accurately assessing issues in America and speaking to them. And almost all of those candidates are on the far left, as opposed to being more like centrist candidates. All right, Mikhail Meme says, thoughts on right-wing moderates in Sweden supporting free abortion law as a human right? I would just say that that's evidence of how psychotic the American conservatives have become, where even right-wing, even right-wingers in other countries are at least like, yeah, but abortion's healthcare, so it would be psychotic if we tried to make that illegal. Also, making it illegal doesn't stop abortions or even decrease them. Sir Campslot says, like, for example, of an issue I have with specific Democrats, this will be a few messages. All right. Gavin Newsom is fighting against a state-level ballot measure to tax ultra-wealthy residents while simultaneously calling for a national billionaire tax. I don't understand what the issue is with that, Sir Campslot. Like, yeah, obviously, I would prefer if Gavin Newsom was not fighting against a state-level ballot measure to tax ultra-wealthy residents, but at least he is calling for a national billionaire tax. Like that's better than not doing that, right? Don't you think? Okay, Connie, Lola, and Sarah, thank you so much for helping me reach my first finger hearts goal of the day. Rock says, what do you define fascism as? I prefer to use like the definition of fascism that has to do with like what are the specific things that fascist governments and fascist dictators tend to do, and it's all the shit that like Trump and Stephen Miller are doing. You know, it's like you attack the media, you attack institutions of higher learning, you attack experts, you purge everybody from your party that is not a 100% loyalist, you try to take over the media, you know, infect the courts, you know, corruption, demagoguing, scapegoating a marginalized community. You know, Hitler did it with Jewish people, and the Trump administration is doing it with immigrants and brown people, you know. Okay, let's see here. Duncan Crossbury says, what about the DSA proposal to have a unicameral legislator rather than the current bicameral legislator in America? I'm actually open to the argument that we should get rid of the Senates. I don't know if America is ready for that right now. I don't know if the votes are there, but I do think it is a really cool and interesting policy. That's not a hill that I'm going to die on. You know, like if there's a candidate who is progressive and perfect in every way except they still think that the Senate has value, like I'll probably still support them. But I do like starting this conversation about getting rid of the Senate, or at least rebalancing the Senate. Okay, let's see here. Sir Campsall says, I don't even complain about Republicans anymore because they are non-starters and are awful. But that's an issue, Sir Campsall. Don't you see how that's an issue in the narrative? Like, if we just assume that Republicans are awful, but then we spend all of our time criticizing the Democratic Party, it creates this message that Democrats can never be good enough, but Republicans can never be bad enough. Like, why aren't we talking about the guy who's stabbing us in the throat and only focusing on the guy who's giving us a paper cut? Like, yeah, the guy that's giving us a paper cut fucking sucks, but the dude who's stabbing us in the throat is the immediate concern. That is the big problem. Like it's sus, in my opinion. It's sus to focus on criticizing the Democratic Party when you have the most wildly illegal, unconstitutional, barbaric, inhumane, own goal, unproductive shit that is currently happening because Republicans have full control of the government and have captured the Supreme Court. Am I wrong, Sir Campsalot? Like, follow me down this rabbit hole, my guy. AK Pandu says Democrats are still stabbing you in the throat. That is wildly inaccurate. Ak Pandu. I'm happy to go into more detail on that if you like. Bruh says, have you seen the jobs report by chance? I have not. Okay, Duncan Crossbury says, why do liberals not accept poor diarrhea works? We got too many good questions today, guys. I can't be wasting my time with these joke questions today. Okay, hold on a second. Average Joe says, isn't Manchin the reason that a single payer option was removed from the Affordable Care Act? No, that was Lieberman. Yeah, you were right about that. Okay, Mancor says, so first the Republican and then the bad Democrats. Yes, 100%. But we can walk and chew gum at the same time. Like, we can primary the bad Democrats. But if the bad Democrats still win for whatever reason, APAC money, or where they're running is, you know, they like more centrist Democrats where they are, then you still should vote for those Democrats over the Republicans. The problems solve themselves, you know. AK Pandu says Democrats are still stabbing you in the throat, and when I said I can illuminate that if you like, he says please do. All right, well, let me go through like a short list of things that Democrats have done just in the past administration, okay? The Biden administration negotiated paid sick days for the rail workers union. They avoided a strike, which would have been catastrophic for poor people, and also got them the sick days that they wanted in the first place. Joe Biden was the first president to walk a picket line. Kind of, you know, what do you call it? You know, more of a demonstration than anything substantive, but I still think that messages matter. Lena Khan, who was running Biden's FTC, was breaking up monopolies for the first time in a generation. His National Labor Relations Board was siding with the unions for the first time in a generation. The Inflation Reduction Act was the largest investment in renewable energy in our nation's history. It was revitalizing small towns with good paying, clean energy jobs. It also got the inflation down that was started by the Trump administration from 9% down to 2.4%, which is where economists said that it should be. It was the absolute perfect soft landing that they were planning on doing. What else? The CHIPS Act, the PACT Act, that was, you know, respectively bringing back technological manufacturing to America and also filling gaps in veterans' medical care. I can go on. The Affordable Care Act made it illegal for insurance companies to discriminate against you for having pre-existing conditions. There are people alive today because of the Affordable Care Act. Let's see here. Capping the cost of insulin, capping the cost of asthma inhalers. I can go on. Alrighty, Sir Campsalot says Republicans deserve constant public scrutiny at all times, but Democrats need their ducks in a row. Again, Sir Campsalot, the house is on fire, and it sounds like, yeah, we need to get this house on fire, but also the drapes are terrible. Like, come on, my guy. Like, you have to respect how sus this is. You have to respect how unproductive it is to constantly be bringing the conversation back to how the Democratic Party isn't perfect. There is this narrative that is happening in American culture right now. It's been happening for a long time, and I believe it is a fully inorganic propaganda technique by the billionaire class, where no matter what happens in politics, Democrats are always wrong for some reason. They're either too far to the left or too far to the right, or doing too much or doing too little. We are constantly raising the bar for the Democratic Party and constantly lowering it for the Republican Party. The Republican Party is responsible for the largest national security fuck up in potentially American history, 9/11. They had full control of the government at the time, and they still let 9/11 happen. But if you ask Americans which is the party that you trust more with national security, they will tell you Republicans. They will tell you that, like, they would have told you that on September 12th, 2001, because Americans have been so fully fucking propagandized into thinking that Republicans equal big, strong, good national security. And yet that was their fuck up. And Americans are so fucking quick to forgive the Republican Party for all that shit. But any tiny little mistake that Democrats make, completely, every Democrat's invalid. Every Democrat's invalid. Nancy Pelosi goes out there and says that she thinks that it's okay for politicians to do insider trading, and that means that every Democrat does insider trading. Not true. And also, what about Republicans? Why is Nancy Pelosi the face of this when every single fucking Republican politician is also doing it? And every single Republican politician that is currently in charge of the government is not passing a bill to make that illegal. So follow me on this, Sir Cancela. Follow me on this. Sir Cancela says, well, the Democrats we get in office determine the amount of water to put out of the fire, right? Yeah, but some water is better than no water. See, we're on the same team here, Sir Cancela. Like, the candidates that I support in the primary are the candidates that you probably support in the primary too. But my whole fucking thing is, can we please change this dynamic of making it so that Democrats can never be good enough and Republicans can never be bad enough? And I think that you constantly bringing it back around to what Democrats have done wrong and kind of like yada, yada, yada-ing all the mistakes. And I mean, it seems too small a word to say mistakes, the sins of the Republican Party. Like, it really is kind of like directing that narrative, Sir Campsalot. Alrighty, let's see here. AK Pandu says, Democrats have never been too far to the left, LMAO. I'm sure in your opinion, AK Pandu, and probably my opinion too. But the majority of Americans would disagree with you, my guy. Like, I think it's important that we recognize that not everybody in America agrees with us. You know, there was a big study that came out called like Deciding to Win or something like that. And they found that the majority of Americans believe that the current Democratic Party is too far to the left. Now, there are issues with that poll. Like, you kind of have to break it into specific issues. Like, they believe that the Democratic Party is not far enough to the left on economic issues and things like healthcare, but they're too far to the left on issues like immigration and security and policing and shit like that. But the fact remains is that there are a lot of very smart, normal people who have this idea from social media or from right-wing media or whatever, and they believe that the Democratic Party has become too radically far left. So you can agree with me on this, that, you know, we should still support those moderate candidates even if, you know, they're not our favorite. Or you could just go out there and tell every other American besides you is wrong, you know? Alrighty, let's see here. Cardinal says, is this page satire? No. Nova says, is the Senate DEI for Republicans? Yes. Funkytron says, thoughts on Hassan? I know the right loves to use same talking point and attack him, especially recently. Funkytron, finish your question or finish your statement. RR says, what do you think of Mr. President being released from prison back to Colorado Wild? What are you talking about? User, a whole bunch of numbers, says, Shalom, which tribe are you from? I mean, I'm American. I think I know what you're talking about, but, like, I don't, you know, I don't practice any religion, you know, so just miss me with your Jew spotting here, user. Okay, Burnswood says, what? I'm following cronyism. Who do you support? Democrats, up and down the ballot, Burnswood. Did I answer your question? Are you still here? Mikhail Beam, see you later. Good to see you again. Average Joe says the reason this conversation is important is because of the expectations of the base. When Dem voters see their rep insider trading and starving kids, they need to be shamed into meeting their base or primary. I don't disagree with that at all, Average Joe. But have you recognized how the narrative gets shortened and merged into every Democrat as opposed to those Democrats? And that's the issue that I have. Like Chuck Schumer, for as shitty as he is, if he were Senate Majority Leader, he would be helping Bernie Sanders. It would be easier for Bernie Sanders to get his policy preferences accomplished with Chuck Schumer being the Majority Leader in the Senate than John Thune, the Republican. That's the issue that I'm having, is that we flatten this conversation to say, okay, Nancy Pelosi equals Democrats equals both parties are equally the same, equally as terrible on this, Average Joe. Alrighty. Duncan Crossberry says, don't want to go warmongering, but I hope the next American administration takes the most hawkish approach towards Russia and has a deal with Iran. I mean, I wouldn't say it's hawkish just to try to come up with a deal with Iran. But I definitely don't think that we should get into a hot war with Russia. You really don't want two nuclear powers going at it against each other. All right, goes with the Gozerian. Good to see you again. Says, I think they always have 8 or 9 Dems that cross the line to vote with Republicans. I am aware that this is a theory that exists. I think there might be some legitimacy to it. But again, the more Democrats that you put in Congress, the less able to do that they will be able to do. Also, those Democrats who do vote against the Democratic Party or for the Republicans or whatever, primary them. I'm not going to tell you not to primary them. I'm just saying that having that Democrat in that seat is still better than having a Republican in that seat. Aduno asks, if James Tallarico flipped Texas to blue, do you think that he can win re-election in the future? I mean, yeah, he seems like a pretty good guy to me. User a bunch of numbers says, what I realize as Democrat is they are now liberal socialists on their way to communists. I don't agree with that at all, user. Clean Fresh Edit says, how would you convince a liberal to Zionist to vote for El Sayed? I guess I would want to know what the priorities of that person are. Like, Abdul El-Sayed does not believe in taking AIPAC money or giving Netanyahu a blank check, but that doesn't mean that he's willing to throw the citizens of Israel under the bus, you know? And I think that some of the rhetoric around how anti-Jewish Abdul El-Sayed is, blatantly false. And so people need to kind of like come to grips with that also. Aduno says, do you think a filibuster should be nuked? Yes, but not yet. Like, we got to get rid of Trump before we got to get rid of Republican presidents and Republican senators before we get rid of the filibuster. Otherwise, we'll get some real fucking bullshit passed, Okay, unavailable user says, why are both parties so corrupt compared to other countries? Both parties are not so corrupt. Republicans are way more corrupt. Democrats are the party of trying to eliminate corruption. Unavailable. Ask me more about that. Happy to get into it. Joseph Soros says, left versus right is what they want. It's the government versus its people. No, it's billionaires versus everybody else. The government is what protects us against the billionaires. Joseph Sawyer. Nebula says, do you think that ICE is necessary? No, we were able to do immigration enforcement before ICE. We can do it without ICE. Odin-san, great to see you again, says, what conservative principle do you think holds the most water? I mean, bureaucracy needs to be clean. Bureaucracy needs to be done in a way that does not hamper progress. Where, you got people like Mamdani actually simplifying a lot of the bureaucracy so that it's easier for people to start small businesses and stuff like that. If you said that to somebody, like just in the theoretical, they would say like, oh, that's a Republican principle to like get rid of red tape, to undo some unnecessary bureaucracy. And, if you kind of like look at blue states versus red state, like there is some truth to that. But I don't think that Democrats by and large want there to be unnecessary red tape. I don't think they want there to be cumbersome bureaucracy. I just think that they have, for a bunch of different reasons, this ends up happening. And, the regulations that Republicans want to get rid of are the things that like make sure that our air and our water is safe. Whereas, the bureaucracy that we should be getting rid of is like, let's, eliminate roadblocks to building a high-speed rail and more houses so that people can afford a place to live. Florida Dude says, what do you think about Ron Paul? Do not care for him. Colleen says, all rich people are corrupt. I don't know if I agree with that. Chuck says, thoughts on Tucker Carlson's new party. Tucker Carlson is a liar and a con artist. He is pivoting right now because he sees where the wind is blowing. But he will say and do anything that makes him more money and power. So do not vote for, do not endorse. Okay, Optimus says, what do you think about my new beard? I haven't seen it, but based on the thumbnail, it looks pretty dope. User a bunch of numbers says, would you call fraud corruption? No, that is different. Okay. Max says, Democrats believe in Muslim rule. No, Democrats believe in separation of church and states. Mac, do you have an issue with Christian rule, Mac? Or is it just Muslim rule that you have a problem with, Mac? Let me know. Okay. Michael Matter says, should Democrats pack the Supreme Court if they get President, House, and Senate? So I want to address the language there, Michael, because I think that you're probably asking in good faith. But to describe Democrats fixing a hacked Supreme Court as packing the court, I think is inaccurate. The Republican Party has packed the court. They have corrupted the Supreme Court. They have been packing the judiciary with right-wing activist psychopath judges who have no sort of like legal foundation to their decisions besides what is good for billionaires, what is good for the Republican Party, what is good for Donald Trump. So do I think that the Democratic Party should add seats to the Supreme Court to unfuck it, to unpack it, to unhack it? Yes, 100%. All right, Max says, just Muslim rule. Seems pretty weird to me that you're fine with Christian rule. You realize that the point of America is freedom of religion, right? Point of America is that there should not be a national religion, right, Mac? Right? We read the Constitution, right, Mac? We're the First Amendment, right? Freedom of religion, right, Mac? I was wondering why you wouldn't have a problem with Christian rule, Mac, because that would violate the separation of church and state, right, Mac? Right? Stooping says, unfortunately, the Democratic Party has no teeth and they won't do a fucking thing, even if they. I'm assuming your next sentence was going to be something like come to power, and that is inaccurate, Stooping. I understand that is the narrative around the Democratic Party, but it is inaccurate, and I'm happy to go into more detail on that if you like. Miles says, who or what is really in control of our presumably elected officials? I mean, we elect the people that we vote for, but money does have a big say in politics because of changes that the Republican Party has made. Chuck says, any Republicans you would endorse? Massey? Question mark? No. Every single Republican, even the good ones, are still a Republican, which means that they are some flavor of cutting regulations that keep pollution out of our food and our air, cutting taxes for the wealthy, cutting government programs. And that is and not doing anything about gun control. The Republican platform is just a laundry list of really, really bad ideas. And so if you still say that you're a Republican, like, which of those really, really bad ideas do you still ascribe to? Jordan says, are you a leftist? Yes. Chuck, I already did that one. Funkytron says, if progressive loses to an establishment and you vote for that establishment, I see that as forfeit. Why? Funkytron? Like, it's still helping progressives to vote a Democrat into that seat. Like, AOC is able to pass progressive legislation if establishment Democrats win seats that would go to Republicans. Does that make sense, Funkytron? Ant says, as much as Democrats come in and fix Republicans messing everything up, and we will truly escape the Dem to rep cycle without a progressive. I generally agree with that, Ant, but I'm like, I think it's more complicated than you're making it out to be. All right, B. Smarf says, you can say the same about the left. It's awful. No, that is inaccurate, BS Smarf. I'm happy to go into more detail on that if you like. Okay, Owen says, what is politics? Politics is how we discuss what our government is doing and what is happening in our country. Scrolling up, said No Excuses Podcast says, are you letting people up or is that not this kind of a show? Sometimes I let people up, no excuses. Sometimes I don't. So if you want to be brought up, put in a request, and then maybe you will get lucky. Clean Fresh Edit says thoughts on Tucker left right unity populism. Bullshit. If you were dumb enough to fall for Trump or at least lie about how great Trump is at any point since he became part of the America's political world, then I do not trust you to fucking be a dog catcher. Jordan says, how do you get past the feeling of lost hope in American politics as a leftist myself? I feel like that is a perfectly valid question, Jordan. I get it. I fully get it. My answer to that is two things. Number one, the one thing that the Republican Party and the billionaire class want more than anything is for you to lose hope. They want you to give up. They want you to feel as though resistance is futile. They want you to feel like nothing you do matters. They want you to feel like voting doesn't change anything. That pessimism and cynicism and hopelessness is their fucking number one Christmas present that they want. And so how do I get the past the feeling of lost hope? Is I recognize that me feeling hopeless is exactly what those motherfuckers want, and I refuse to give them that gift. They've already got fucking everything. They got lobster, caviar, fucking mansions and yachts and fucking golden private jets. I am not also going to gift them my cynicism, my pessimism, me giving up. And so when they say resistance is futile, give up hope, I say, suck my butthole, you weird fucking dorks. I'm going to continue working to make this a better country. I'm going to continue working to take your fucking power away because you are not doing good things with it. It is dangerous. The other answer is take time off. You know, have a good weekend. Have fun with your family. Have fun with the people that you love, with your friends and your neighbors and your coworkers. My wife and I have a 3-month-old. She gives us joy every single day. She's been a real pill last night, so my wife's a little mad at her, but she still is a little bundle of joy. So we are taking turns to go see movies. Like one of those movies we want to go see, we like do them one at a time, so that one person stays home with a baby, the other person gets to go see a movie. And tonight is my movie night. And so I get to, I'm gonna go to the gym today, which I love going to the gym, sit in a little sauna afterwards, come home, make myself a little dinner, shower the baby, hang out with her and my wife for a little bit, and then I get to go to see the movies. And then I feel nice and refreshed, and I get to go back into the fight. Get back into the fight on Monday. I hope that answers your question, my guy. All right, Stooping says, I mean, Democrats are rich too, and I am a Democrat, but our party is in a terrible state. I completely disagree with that, Stooping. We have a deep bench of awesome candidates right now, and progressive candidates are winning a record number of primaries, Stooping. So it seems like you're not really paying attention, I would say. Like, Stooping says, it must be really nice to be young and idealistic. I guarantee you I am older than you. I guarantee you. But dude, like, how can you deny that things are getting better? You know, people were saying, like in 2024, that we shouldn't vote for the Democratic Party to teach them a lesson. And they didn't vote for the Democratic Party, and now we're all fucked. ICE is running around just murdering people on the street. We're wasting $1 billion a day on a stupid fucking war in Iran. That is, in addition, wasting human lives, which is arguably worse. You know, you got the Trump fucking kids doing a bunch of corruption all around the globe. Like Chuck Schumer is not feeling that pain from us not voting in 2024. But you know what he is feeling pain? Is fucking Abdul El-Sayed winning in Michigan and Janet Mills not winning in Maine. All these fucking progressive candidates are the real pain that you want to be giving to establishment Democrats. And that shit is happening now more than ever before. So how you can still be there in that pessimism of, the party's in a terrible state, like, I would argue we're in a better position now than we've been in a very, very long time. Like, a lot of the Democrats that people are thinking of as challengers for 2028 are dope as fucking hell. Bashir, Ossoff, AOC. There's a deep fucking bench, man. Like, even people that I don't necessarily agree with on 100% of the issues, like Buttigieg is dope, even though he's more centrist than I care for. He's still fucking dope. Shubik says, if these weren't edge cases, I would agree with you, but they're edge cases, and it's I think you probably meant to say hopeless, stooping. And again, no, you're wrong about this. Because if it's more than it was yesterday, then it's not edge cases. It is a growing momentum, stooping. Honestly, you're sus. You're sus, my guy. Like coming out here and spreading that kind of negativity is sus. Like there are bots in Russia and India right now who are being paid to spread the exact kind of pessimism that you are spreading right now. So I hope you're getting paid for this. You know, I hope you're not just doing this for free because you got tricked by a bunch of other bots that were equally pessimistic about stuff. All right. John Abbott says, are you going to go see Super Troopers 3? Probably not. I didn't love Super Troopers 2. I do like those guys. I think they're really funny. Average Joe says, modern conservatism, laws should restrain you but protect me. 100% accurate. All right. Ant says, do you think AOC would have a solid chance of winning? Yeah, she's extremely popular. Bobby Funk says, what's your view on nationalism? I don't like nationalism. I prefer patriotism. I prefer to think of it as like, I love my country and I want to work to make it better, as opposed to my country is automatically, without changing anything, better than every other country and everybody else can suck my butthole. That doesn't seem like a very productive way to be a global citizen. Danny Luck says, are there any respectable conservatives in this chat? Sometimes there are. Yeah, my buddy Jeremy was here a little while ago. I don't know if he's still here. I got my buddy Cflon pops in every now and again. My buddy Sophia pops in every now and again. But yeah, they're definitely respectable conservatives in this chat. The vibe today is not respectful conservatives. The vibe today is people who are going out of their way to smear the Democratic Party so that people think that both parties are equally terrible. And that's been the job today. That's been batting down that nonsense. Okay, Jacob says, thoughts on Second Amendment absolutionists. I don't think America is there. I don't really see the value in the Second Amendment. It seems like every other country that doesn't have a right to bear arms, it seems like they're doing great without it. You know, a lot fewer gun deaths without it. It's not like their crime is substantively worse than our crime. You know, people want to protect their families in other countries that don't have a Second Amendment, and they seem to be doing it pretty good. You know, but I get that is not the mainstream opinion, even amongst people that tend to vote for Democratic politicians. So, you know, I am not going to have a litmus test for politicians on whether or not they believe that we should get rid of the Second Amendment. But if it happened, if America became majority Second Amendment absolutionists, I would not be mad about that at all. Okay, Tom says, is the DSA going to wreck the Democratic Party? No, the DSA is part of the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is a big tent, you know? It has your Chuck Schumer's and it's got your Bernie Sanders' is. And so, you know, everybody who is saying that the DSA should go start their own party, that's fucking bullshit. Like, James Carville, you are a fucking fossilized turd. Just, like, go away. Congratulations, man. You won a couple of elections in the 90s. You know, but it's fucking nonsense. Like, yeah, what better idea than to split the votes in a 50-50 country? Like, yeah, that would be really, really cool if we took 50% of the Democratic voters and we just fucking fucked off so that Republicans could win every election going forward. Fuck it. That's that brilliant strategy that comes out of people like James Carville and fucking Bill Meyer. What the fuck's that guy's name? What's that fucking dude I hate on HBO? Bill something, right? Tom says, but the DSA is driving moderates away? I don't think they are. They're being driven away if they want to be driven away. But I don't see the DSA saying you have to be this level of progressive in order to vote with us. You know, this is not Mean Girls. All right, everybody. I got to start wrapping things up. Again, busy day. It's my Friday. Jacob says, abolitionist means deregulation, example, repealing the NFA. Oh, that's not how I take the word absolution to mean at all. Like, you know, or I guess abolitionists are the ones that, I guess those words are way too close together for me not to get confused. Bill Maher, thank you very much. John Abbott, I appreciate you helping me out there. All right, everybody, I got to start ramping things up. Hold on a second. Jordan says, Jarrett, what's your opinion on tankies and chronically online? I think that my litmus, I think you're allowed to be as hardcore far left as you want, so long as you recognize that better is better and worse is worse. You know, and I agree with a lot of these people on a lot of things, but if you go out there with your massive platform and you say that you refuse to vote for blank Democrat because they're not progressive enough for you, then you can just fuck right off. That is what a wildly irresponsible thing to say in the year of our Lord 2026, with fucking Trump and a unified Republican Party being in control of fucking everything and ruining everything. And you're still going to go out there and say, like, oh, I couldn't live with myself if I voted for that person and the blah, blah, blah. Just like, go to fucking hell. Like, this is bigger. This is a bigger fucking deal than your ego. Yeah, I couldn't live with myself if I voted for Kamala Harris. Well, Renee Good is now dead. And Alex Preddy is dead. And others. And many, many others. And there are children being held in ICE detention facilities right now, being force-fed maggot-infested expired food and not being given medical treatment that they need. Cancer medicine. They are not being given. Fuck, that is a violation of everybody's human rights. But you couldn't live with yourself if you voted for Kamala Harris. Yeah, tell the families of the Iranian schoolgirls that got killed. Tell the families of the Venezuelan fishermen that are being murdered by Pete Hegseth. You couldn't live with yourself if you voted for Kamala Harris. So yeah, that's how I feel about that shit. But again, if you're doing the work, if you're out there with your whole ass saying, I'm going to fight to the death to get these progressive candidates elected in their primary, but if they fail, then I'm going to work my ass off to elect the whatever Democrat won instead, then you are allowed to have whatever fucking crazy ass far left opinions that you want. And I may agree with some of them and I may disagree with other ones. But again, if you're going to be a responsible member of this country, you have to encourage people to vote for better over worse. I just don't see, this is a moral fucking issue. And if your ego is more important to you than making sure that other people don't get murdered by ICE and murdered off the coast of Venezuela just because they're trying to fucking fish, or children getting murdered in Iran because our president's a fucking idiot who can't do statecraft, then you suck. Then you're like a really, really bad person, in my opinion. All right, everybody. That was a real nice soapbox moment for me. I feel great. The view is great from my high horse up here. All right. I'm going to get out of here. If you are a gifter, I would really appreciate it if you just randomly sent me a bunch of different gifts. Doesn't matter if they're like 1 coin gifts or 100 coin gifts, but I have like a challenge from TikTok Central that I have to get like a variety of gifts today. I got to get like 10 different gifts today. So, you know, you can send, what do we got here? What's like some things? If you're a gifter and you want to send me a high bear or a dolphin or a summer sun or a donut or a rosa or a go live or a chili or heart puff or a goat, that would really help me to finish off this what do you call it, finish off this challenge that I got from TikTok. If you do want to support the channel, like that's one of the ways you can do it. You can send gifts on TikTok, you can send bits on Twitch, you can be a fan on TikTok, which is a free thing, or you can be a super fan, which is like a subscription. And if you have things that you want for your subscription dollars that I'm not providing, like, let me know. I'm open to suggestions. What else? There's also, you can be a subscriber to my Twitch channel. That is also a paid thing. But if you have Amazon Prime, you can be a subscriber to my Twitch for free. Costs you $0, helps me out a ton. So even if you watch on TikTok, you can just pop over to Twitch, follow me with your Amazon Prime account for free, then just go back to watching me on TikTok if you want. And my viewers are always very helpfully reminding people that you have to like redo that like every single month. And you can also join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month, though there was a very fun incentive at $10 a month if you have that kind of money to spread around. Any questions that you have when I'm not streaming, do not hesitate to reach out. I want to be a resource for you to be more involved and more informed about politics. So however I can do that, reach out to me. You can hit me up via my DMs. DMs are open. You can email me through my website. Link is in the bio, or you can hit me up on my Discord channel. Link is also in the bio. And the Discord is great because there's recommendations there for books and podcasts and a good community. And also there's recommendations there for things that you can do. If you're looking for volunteer opportunities, if you want to be a part of the solution and not just be an observer and hoping for the best, then the Discord is a great place to go. But I want you to be a part of this fight. I want you out there doing the work. The more people that I can convince to get out there and do the work, the less work that I have to do. because I ain't stopping. You know, like someone earlier in the chat was calling for revolution. Like, this is the fucking revolution. My guy, when you go out on the internet with your whole ass face and real name and you start saying things that the government would really hate if you were saying, the current government would hate if you were saying, then yeah, that's some fucking revolution shit, my guy. Not to S my own T here, but you know, this is not the safest thing I could be doing. Thank God I'm not so famous that they know that I'm saying these things. So yeah, be a part of the revolution. Do the work, guys. Like, let's all help each other out. You know, let's all be a part of the solution. Let's all try to make a better country, because we don't have to live like this. We don't have to live where we can't afford healthcare and housing and college educations for our children. We don't have to live worried about being able to put food on the table or gas in the tank or be able to keep the lights on. Like, there is a better way to live. And if we do the work, then we can have that kind of country and we can have that kind of life. So do the work. Be good to each other. You don't have to be a dick to do the work. Be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work after all. And I will see you guys on Monday. Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. So I will see you guys on Monday. Same bat time, same bat channel. Have a great weekend, everybody. And take care. Bye-bye. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.